Okay, so imagine you own a beautiful car showroom. There are brand new SUVs sitting under bright lights. Customers walk through the doors every day. You sell a $50,000 vehicle, another $40,000 vehicle, maybe a few used cars. And it looks like you're making a fortune. But here's the part most people don't see. A car dealership isn't really a business where you simply buy cars and sell them for more money. It's a complicated machine built around inventory, financing, trade-ins, service, parts, warranties, employees, real estate, advertising, and cash flow. And if you get one part wrong, a showroom full of expensive cars can actually become a very expensive problem. In 2026, the average transaction price for a new vehicle in the US was around $49,758 in June. So if you're thinking, if I can sell just 100 cars a month, I'm going to be rich. Hold on, because selling 100 cars does not mean you're keeping millions of dollars. Today, we're going to break down what it actually takes to own a car showroom in America, how much money you may need, where dealerships really make their money, why service departments can be more important than the cars themselves, and the biggest mistakes that can destroy a dealership before it even becomes profitable. Let's get into it. Before you start thinking about buying a building, hiring salespeople, or putting cars on the lot, you need to understand something important. There isn't just one type of car dealership. There are two very different worlds. You have franchise dealerships. Think Ford, Toyota, Chevrolet, Honda, BMW, Mercedes-Benz, and similar brands. Then you have independent dealerships. These businesses aren't tied to a single manufacturer and can generally source and sell different brands. And the difference is enormous. If you want to open a Toyota dealership, for example, you can't simply rent a building, put a Toyota sign outside, and start selling cars. You need a relationship with the manufacturer, and manufacturers have strict requirements around facilities, operations, sales, service, branding, and performance. That's why buying or acquiring an existing franchise dealership can be dramatically different from starting an independent used car operation. An independent showroom can potentially start smaller. A franchise dealership can require dramatically more capital and infrastructure. So the first question isn't, how much does a showroom cost? The better question is, what kind of dealership am I actually trying to build? This is where the dream usually meets reality. Let's say you want to open a small independent used car dealership. You might think, I'll buy 20 cars, rent a lot, hire 2 salespeople, and start selling. But your costs don't stop with the cars. You need licensing, insurance, a location, office equipment, dealer management software, advertising, website and digital marketing, employees, security, registration and title processing, detailing, repairs, transportation, and most importantly, working capital. Because cars don't always sell immediately. Imagine you have 30 vehicles sitting on your lot. Your money is now sitting inside those vehicles. If customers aren't buying quickly, you're not just missing sales. You're tying up cash. And that's one of the biggest problems in the dealership business. Inventory turns into cash only when it sells. Now imagine you're operating a larger franchise dealership. Suddenly you're talking about hundreds of vehicles, a large facility, a service department, parts inventory, technicians, sales staff, finance employees, managers, advertising, and significant real estate costs. At that point, you're not starting a small business. You're building a full-scale automotive operation. And this is why dealership ownership is generally a capital-intensive business. Here's the biggest misconception about dealerships. People look at a $50,000 car and think, there's probably $10,000 of profit in that car. Not necessarily. The sticker price isn't the dealership's profit. A vehicle may have a manufacturer's suggested retail price. The customer may negotiate. The dealer may offer discounts. The manufacturer may offer incentives. The dealer may have paid a different amount for the vehicle. And then you have floor plan interest, advertising, commissions, and other costs. So the actual gross profit on the vehicle can be much smaller than the selling price suggests. And this is why successful dealers don't look at one car. They look at the entire dealership. Because one department may have a thin margin, while another department produces much stronger economics. That brings us to one of the most important parts of the business. Think of a dealership as several businesses operating under one roof. The first is new vehicle sales. The second, used vehicle sales. The third, finance and insurance, or F&I. The fourth, service. The fifth, parts. And sometimes there are additional revenue streams such as body repair, accessories, extended service contracts, and other products. This matters because the dealership doesn't necessarily need to make huge money on every vehicle. It needs the entire ecosystem to work. Let's take a simple example. A customer walks in and buys a new SUV. The dealership makes some gross profit on the vehicle, but the customer may also finance the purchase. That creates an opportunity for the dealership's finance department. The customer may also purchase certain optional products. Then 6 months later, the customer needs an oil change. A year later, tires. Later, brakes. Eventually, more repairs. And if the dealership has built a strong service relationship, that customer can remain economically valuable for years. So the vehicle sale may be the beginning of the relationship, not the end. This is one of the most important things anyone considering dealership ownership should understand. Cars need maintenance. And as vehicles stay on the road longer, service becomes increasingly important. Cox Automotive's 2026 Fixed Operations and Ownership Study found that nearly two-thirds of vehicle owners are keeping their vehicles for 5 years or more. The same study found that about 80% of new car buyers were likely to service their vehicle at the selling dealership. That's a massive opportunity, because once the car leaves the showroom, the service department can keep generating revenue. Think about it. The dealership sells the car once, but it can service that vehicle many times. Oil changes, brake work, tires, batteries, diagnostics, suspension, air conditioning, warranty work, major repairs, and parts. That's why a strong dealership isn't just a parking lot full of cars. It's also a service business. In fact, if I were evaluating a dealership as an investment, I wouldn't only ask, how many cars does this dealership sell? I'd ask, how healthy is its service and parts business? Because that tells you something about the dealership's long-term customer relationship. Now let's talk about used vehicles. Used car operations can be extremely important because dealers have more flexibility over inventory. You aren't limited to one new car manufacturer's product lineup. You can buy vehicles through trade-ins, auctions, and other channels, depending on your business model. But used cars come with a different challenge. Every vehicle is different. One car might need $500 of repairs. Another might need $3,000. One might sell in 3 days. Another could sit for 90 days. And the longer a vehicle sits, the more dangerous it can become, because your capital is trapped. Let's say you buy a used vehicle for $25,000. You expect to sell it for $29,000. Looks great. But then you spend $1,500 on repairs and reconditioning. Another $500 on transportation and preparation. You spend money advertising it. And 3 months later, the market value falls. Now you have a decision. Do you hold the car longer and hope someone pays your target price? Or do you reduce the price and get your money back into the business? This is why inventory management is one of the most important skills in dealership ownership. Here's another concept most customers never think about. Dealerships don't necessarily pay cash for every vehicle sitting on the lot. Many dealers use inventory financing, commonly called floorplan financing. In simple terms, a lender provides financing against dealership inventory. That means the dealer can have a lot full of vehicles without paying the entire inventory cost from its own cash. Sounds great, but there's a catch. Interest. Every day inventory sits there, financing costs can accumulate. So a car that doesn't sell isn't just taking up parking space. It can be costing the dealership money. This creates a very important dealership metric. How quickly does inventory turn? A dealer generally wants vehicles moving. Buy inventory, prepare it, market it, sell it, collect the money. Repeat. If inventory starts moving slowly, cash flow can become a serious problem. Now let's talk about something that looks impressive, but can destroy your economics. The building. Imagine you build an incredible showroom. Huge glass windows, luxury offices, massive parking lot, beautiful customer lounge, state-of-the-art service center. It looks amazing. But here's the question. Can the dealership generate enough gross profit to support the building? Because real estate costs don't disappear when sales slow down. You still have rent or mortgage, property taxes, utilities, maintenance, security, insurance, and staff. This is why location matters so much. You want visibility. You want accessibility. You want enough traffic. But you also need economics that make sense. The best location isn't necessarily the most expensive location. It's the location that gives you the right combination of customer access, competition, operating costs, and sales potential. A dealership is extremely people-intensive. You need salespeople, sales managers, finance managers, service advisors, technicians, parts employees, detailers, reception, accounting, management, and depending on the size of the dealership, many more roles. And here's the tricky part. You're not just paying salaries. You may also be paying commissions, benefits, training, payroll taxes, and incentives. A dealership with poor management can burn money incredibly quickly. For example, imagine your sales team sells plenty of cars, but your used car manager is overpaying for inventory, or your service department has empty technician bays, or your finance department has weak processes, or your advertising costs are high but generate low-quality leads. You can have strong sales volume and still have weak profits. That's why dealership ownership is much more about management than simply selling cars. Now we get to one of the most important parts of the dealership. F&I, finance and insurance. When a customer buys a car, they may need financing. The dealership may work with banks, credit unions, or other financing sources. The dealership's finance team handles documentation and may offer optional products. This department can be economically important. But there's a major lesson here. More revenue doesn't mean you can ignore compliance. In 2026, regulators continue to pay close attention to deceptive auto pricing and add-on practices. In March 2026, the FTC warned 97 auto dealership groups that advertised vehicle prices must reflect the total price consumers are required to pay, including mandatory fees. The FTC has also continued enforcement actions involving unwanted add-ons and so-called payment packing. So if you're thinking about owning a dealership, you need to understand something. You aren't just building a sales organization. You're operating inside a highly regulated consumer finance environment. Transparency isn't just good customer service. It's part of protecting the business. This deserves its own section. Because some dealership owners may think, maybe we can advertise a really low price and make the money back through fees. That's a dangerous strategy. In March 2026, the FTC specifically warned dealers about advertised prices that exclude mandatory fees, rely on discounts unavailable to everyone, require additional down payments, or condition the price on dealer financing. The FTC also withdrew the federal cars rule in February 2026 following court developments, but that does not mean dealers have a free pass to mislead customers. Existing consumer protection laws and enforcement remain very relevant. And from a business perspective, there's another reason to avoid these tactics. Trust compounds. If customers trust you, they come back. They refer friends. They service their vehicles with you. They buy their next vehicle from you. If customers feel cheated, they don't. So the smartest long-term dealership isn't necessarily the one that extracts the most money from one customer. It's the one that creates the most value from a customer relationship over time. So which one should you choose? Let's compare them. Franchise dealership. You get a recognized brand. You may have access to manufacturer programs. You can sell new vehicles. You can have factory-backed warranty and service operations. But you also face significant requirements. Higher capital needs, manufacturer standards, facility requirements, performance expectations, and potentially much more complexity. Independent dealership. You have more flexibility. You can choose different vehicle brands. You can potentially start smaller. You have more control over inventory, but you don't have the same manufacturer relationship. And your reputation, sourcing, and customer acquisition become extremely important. So there isn't one universally better model. It depends on your capital, experience, market, and business strategy. Let's imagine you operate a dealership selling 100 vehicles per month. And let's use completely hypothetical numbers just to understand the economics. Suppose the average vehicle sells for $40,000. That means 100 vehicles times $40,000 equals $4 million in monthly vehicle sales. That sounds incredible. But remember, $4 million in revenue is not $4 million in profit. If your average gross profit before other operating expenses were, hypothetically, $2,500 per vehicle, that's $250,000 of vehicle gross profit. Then you have payroll, advertising, rent, insurance, interest, utilities, repairs, technology, administrative expenses, and everything else. Then you have other departments, service, parts, F&I, used vehicles. Those can add significant gross profit, but they also have costs. So the business owner's real question isn't, how much did we sell? It's, how much operating profit did the dealership produce after all of its costs? That's the number that matters. This is another reason the business is difficult. The auto market can change quickly. Consumer preferences change. Interest rates change. Gas prices change. Manufacturers change incentives. Vehicle supply changes. Used car prices move. Electric vehicles gain or lose momentum. And consumer affordability changes. For example, new vehicle prices remained close to $50,000 during 2026. Kelley Blue Book reported an average new vehicle transaction price of $49,758 in June 2026. That creates a challenge. Consumers want vehicles, but affordability matters. And when vehicles become expensive, buyers may shift toward lower price segments or used vehicles. Cox Automotive reported that subcompact SUV sales were growing strongly in June 2026, while buyers continued moving toward more affordable vehicle segments. A smart dealer watches these trends constantly, because inventory should follow demand, not the other way around. If I were building a dealership in 2026, I wouldn't start by asking, how big can I make the showroom? I'd ask, how efficiently can I acquire customers and turn them into long-term customers? That means digital marketing, online inventory, fast responses to leads, transparent pricing, strong reviews, good trade-in experiences, easy financing, a clean showroom, a professional service department, and excellent follow-up. Because the customer journey doesn't begin when someone walks through your door anymore. It can begin with a Google search, a YouTube video, a Facebook ad, a dealership website, a review, a marketplace listing, or a text message. So your digital presence is part of your showroom. If you ever own a dealership, there are 5 numbers I'd want to know constantly. Number 1, gross profit per vehicle. How much gross profit are you generating from each vehicle? Number 2, inventory turn. How quickly are vehicles selling? Number 3, days in inventory. How long is each vehicle sitting? Number 4, service absorption. How much of the dealership's fixed operating expenses can the service and parts department cover? Number 5, customer acquisition cost. How much are you spending to generate a real buyer? These numbers tell you much more than the size of your showroom. Because a dealership isn't successful because it looks expensive. It's successful because the economics work. This is probably the question everyone wants answered. And the honest answer is, it depends. A small independent dealership can have a completely different financial profile from a large franchise dealer group. Location matters. Brand matters. Volume matters. Inventory management matters. Service operations matter. Real estate costs matter. Debt matters. Management matters. And market conditions matter. Some dealerships can generate strong profits. Others struggle. And some businesses that look extremely successful from the outside may actually have very thin margins after all expenses. So don't believe anyone who tells you. Just open a dealership and you'll make millions. That's not a business plan. That's a sales pitch. If you genuinely want to own a dealership, don't start with the building. Start with experience. Work inside a dealership. Learn sales. Learn F&I. Learn service. Learn inventory management. Learn vehicle acquisition. Learn accounting. Learn digital marketing. Understand dealership software. Understand manufacturer relationships. Understand financing. And most importantly, learn how dealerships make and lose money. Then study your market. How many competitors are nearby? What brands are selling? What vehicles are moving quickly? What are customers complaining about? What does local real estate cost? What are labor costs? What are insurance costs? How much capital would you need? And what happens if sales are 20% below your forecast? That last question is incredibly important because your business plan shouldn't only work when everything goes perfectly. It should survive when things go wrong. So, do you want to own a car showroom? Then don't think like someone who wants to sell cars. Think like someone who wants to build a customer ecosystem. The car sale gets the customer into the business. Financing can support the transaction. Trade-ins create another inventory source. Service keeps the relationship alive. Parts support the service department. Digital marketing brings customers back. And a great customer experience creates referrals and repeat business. That's the real dealership model. And there's one final thing I want you to remember. A dealership is not a business where you make money because cars are expensive. You make money because you manage capital, inventory, people, customers, financing, and operations better than your competition. That's the difference. So if you're sitting there thinking, one day, I want to own a car showroom, that's absolutely possible. But understand what you're signing up for. You're not just buying a building and putting cars outside. You're taking on an inventory-heavy business. You're managing millions of dollars in transactions. You're dealing with financing. You're managing employees. You're managing customer relationships. You're dealing with regulation. You're managing service operations. And you're constantly trying to balance inventory, margins, and cash flow. The showroom is what customers see. But behind that showroom is an entire financial machine. And if you can build that machine properly, that's where the real opportunity is. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more videos explaining how real businesses actually make money, subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments. Would you rather own a car dealership, a repair shop, or a car rental business? I'll see you in the next video.